The text came in on a Thursday evening while I was watching the news. "Hey Dad, just checking in. Brad and I are thinking of heading up to the cottage next weekend, just to make sure everything's okay after the winter. Don't worry about coming, we'll handle it." I read it twice. Something about the phrasing felt off. Don't worry about coming, like they were doing me a favor, like my presence would somehow be a problem. I brushed it off. I was probably reading too much into a text message. The cottage on Georgian Bay had been in my life for 31 years. I bought the property when I was 32, a half-acre lot on a rocky point outside Honey Harbor, with a dilapidated structure on it that barely qualified as a shed. I spent 3 summers rebuilding it myself. Every beam, every rafter, every stick of cedar siding. I was an electrician by trade, so the wiring was the easy part. The rest I taught myself from library books and a lot of mistakes. My wife Gail used to joke that I was the only person she knew who could spend an entire long weekend battling a rotten subfloor and come back Monday morning happier than when he left. She wasn't wrong. There was something about building something with your hands, something that would outlast you, that I never found anywhere else. We spent every summer up there for 28 years. My daughter grew up on that lake. Natalie caught her first fish off that dock at age 6, a rock bass that she held up screaming and laughing at the same time. She learned to paddle a canoe in that bay. When she brought Brad home for the first time, the cottage was where we took them. Gail made her famous blueberry pie. Brad ate 3 slices and told me the property was a solid long-term asset. I should have paid more attention to that. Gail passed away 2 years ago, October, pancreatic cancer, 7 weeks from diagnosis to the end. Fastest and cruelest thing I've ever witnessed. After she died, I couldn't bring myself to go back to the cottage. Everything up there was hers as much as mine. The perennial garden she'd planted along the east side, the old rocking chair on the porch she'd had since before we met, the hook by the kitchen door where she always hung her sun hat. I told myself I'd go up in the spring, and it wasn't ready. Then summer passed without a visit, then another winter. I was 63 years old, and I felt for the first time in my life genuinely old. So when Natalie called me in early April, about 6 months before everything unraveled, and offered to help with the cottage, I felt something loosen in my chest. Dad, Brad and I love that place. We're worried it's sitting there being neglected. Would you be okay if we went up regularly, kept an eye on it, handled the maintenance, made sure the pipes didn't freeze next winter? You don't have to do anything. We just want to help. I said yes immediately. Natalie was 35, a project manager at a PR firm in Toronto. Brad was in real estate. They were busy people. Responsible, I thought. She's your daughter. She loves that cottage too. That's wonderful, I said. I'd really appreciate that. The dock might need some boards replaced. We'll take care of everything, I promise. For 6 months I felt lighter, knowing someone was watching the place. I was driving up to Penetanguishene in early October to visit my old friend Hank. We'd worked together for 15 years before we both retired, and he'd moved north to be closer to his grandkids. The route from Barrie takes me right past the Honey Harbor turnoff. On an impulse, I took it. I told myself I'd just drive past the gate, maybe look at the lake from the road. But when I turned onto the gravel lane, I kept going, and as I came around the last bend before the cottage came into view, I hit the brakes. There were 4 vehicles parked along the lane where I used to park the boat trailer, 2 SUVs with Quebec plates, a minivan, and a small car with Ontario plates. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. Cottage season was over. The lake was empty of boats. I sat in my truck for a moment, trying to make sense of it. Then I noticed the sign, a proper wooden sign, routed letters, stained dark brown, mounted on cedar posts at the foot of the driveway. Georgian Bay Getaway Premium Cottage Rental, Sleeps 10. My hands went cold on the steering wheel. I pulled into the driveway and got out. The property looked different. New composite decking where my old pressure-treated boards had been. A gas fire table on the patio, surrounded by matching Adirondack chairs I'd never owned. A kayak rack with 4 kayaks. And the rocking chair. Gail's rocking chair, the one with the slight list to the left that we'd never bothered to fix, because she said it made it feel more alive. It was gone. In its place was a matching outdoor love seat with all-weather cushions that looked like it came straight out of a catalog. I stood there on the deck of my own cottage, feeling like a stranger. A family came around from the side yard, mother, father, two teenage kids. The father stopped when he saw me. "Oh, sorry, are you with the next group? We thought checkout was noon, and we've still got a couple hours." "No," I said. "This is my property. My name is on the deed. Who arranged your stay here?" The man's expression shifted. His wife took a step forward. "We booked through VRBO 3 months ago." She pulled out her phone, scrolling quickly. "Georgian Bay Getaway. Hosted by Natalie and Brad." The ground didn't move, exactly, but something shifted underneath me anyway. "How much did you pay?" My voice came out quieter than I intended. $895 a night, the man said, carefully. He was reading my face, I could tell. "We're here 5 nights. For our anniversary. The listing had great reviews. We didn't, if there's some kind of problem." "No problem with you," I said. "I'm very sorry for any confusion. Please finish your stay." I walked down to the dock and sat there for a while, looking at the bay. The water was gray and still. Geese were moving south overhead. Then I took out my phone and searched for Georgian Bay Getaway VRBO. It came up immediately. 4.9 stars, 47 reviews. There was a professional photo of the deck, my deck, with those new Adirondack chairs and the fire table and a bottle of wine on the railing. Inside photos, the kitchen with a new coffee station and a basket of local goods. The bedrooms freshly styled with matching linens, a photo of the dock at sunset, and in the corner of the host profile, Natalie smiling with Brad beside her. I scrolled to the earliest review, posted 16 months ago. I did the math in my head. At $895 a night, even at 60% occupancy, she'd been pulling in $14,000 a month. I kept scrolling through the calendar. Weekend bookings, long weekends, full weeks. Thanksgiving had been booked. Labor Day had been booked. I clicked through to November, December, booked solid. My phone rang, Natalie. I looked at her name on the screen for a long moment before I answered. "Hey Dad, funny coincidence. I just got a message from our VRBO guests saying there was an unexpected visitor at the property. Is everything all right? You didn't happen to drive past today, did you?" The casualness of it, like she was asking about the weather. "I'm sitting on the dock," I said. "The dock with the new boards I never authorized, looking at the kayaks I never bought, wondering where your mother's rocking chair went." A pause. "Dad." "How long, Natalie?" "Look, before you." "How long?" She exhaled. "About 16 months. 16 months. She'd been running a rental business out of my cottage for 16 months without telling me. "Dad, I want to explain. We've put serious money into that property. The deck alone was $11,000. The kayaks, the kayak rack, the Wi-Fi booster, the new mattresses, the outdoor furniture. I didn't ask you to do any of that. The place was falling apart. You hadn't been up in almost 2 years. That's my choice to make, not yours. We're just trying to help. The rental income has been paying down Brad's business debt from when his contracting company ran into trouble last year. You knew about that." "I knew about it. I didn't know your solution was to turn my cottage into a hotel." "It's not a hotel. We keep it in perfect condition. The reviews, Dad, guests love it. It's being used and cared for instead of sitting there empty. It has my name on the deed. Technically, when you told us to manage it however we saw fit. I said, keep an eye on things. I never said open a business on my property." "Okay, you're upset. I get it. Let's talk about this later, when you've had a chance to calm down. We have guests checking in Friday evening and I need to make sure." "Cancel them." "Dad." "Cancel every booking." Silence. "We have bookings through next August," she said. Her voice had changed, less apologetic now, more careful. "That's roughly $90,000 in forward revenue. We can't just cancel. The penalties alone would be thousands of dollars, and we'd lose our superhost status." "Your superhost status, on my property." "This isn't just about you anymore, Dad. We've built something here. We've invested in it." I said nothing. The geese were still calling somewhere over the water. "You know what?" she said quietly. "If you want us to stop, we'll stop. But then you're taking over the monthly costs." The insurance premium went up when we switched to a commercial policy. That's $420 a month. The property tax, on the commercial classification, the cleaning crew after every stay, the VRBO service fees. It's over $2,000 a month just to operate it the way we've set it up. I didn't set it up this way, you did. Because you weren't doing anything with it. I hung up. I drove to Hank's place in a state I don't have a clean word for. Not quite rage. More like the feeling you get when you realize something has been true for a long time and you simply didn't know. I told him everything at his kitchen table, over coffee he'd already had brewed when I walked in. He listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I've always valued about Hank. Then he set down his mug and looked at me straight. I'm going to say something, and I need you to hear it without getting your back up. Go ahead. This isn't entirely surprising to me. I don't mean she's a bad person. She's your daughter, and you know her better than I do. But you've been bailing her out her whole adult life. When she and Brad moved to Toronto and couldn't cover first and last on the apartment, you gave them $6,000. When Brad's contracting business went under, you gave them $45,000 to cover the debts. You bought Natalie's first car. You paid half their wedding. Every single time they've hit a wall, you've been the wall that disappears. I started to say something. I'm not done, he said. What you've taught her, without meaning to, is that your resources are always available to her. She didn't ask you because somewhere she already knew the answer she wanted, and asking might have gotten her the wrong one, so she just decided for herself. I sat with that for a long time. She moved Gail's rocking chair, I finally said. Hank looked at me. It was out on the porch. It's been on that porch for 20 years. She moved it to the shed, put matching catalog furniture in its place. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, that's the part that would have done it for me too. I called David Kowalski the next morning. He'd been my lawyer for over 20 years, handled my will when Gail was diagnosed, knew the property history inside and out. David, my daughter has been operating a short-term rental business on a property in my name without my knowledge or consent. 16 months. Can she do that? She cannot, he said. If your name is on the deed, she has no authority to operate a commercial venture on that property. At minimum, you have grounds for a cease and desist. Depending on how you want to proceed, there's an argument for fraud as well. She's been collecting income from your property under false representation of ownership. I don't want to prosecute my own daughter. Then we send the notice and you change the locks. She stops or you escalate. 2 days later, I drove back up to Honey Harbor. The family from Quebec was still there. I knocked, explained there'd been an administrative error with the property management, refunded them the remaining nights in cash, and apologized for the inconvenience. They were gracious about it. The woman said she hoped we could sort out the family situation. I thanked her. Then I called a locksmith. I was inside going through drawers when my phone started ringing. Natalie first, then Brad, then Natalie again, then a text. Dad, the guest just called. What did you do? I replied, check your email. David Kowalski sent you a formal notice. All rental activity on this property is to cease immediately. The listing is to be removed by end of business tomorrow. She called back within a minute. You sent us a legal notice. Her voice was shaking in a way I hadn't heard before. We're your family and you sent us a legal notice. You ran a business on my property for 16 months without telling me. What did you expect? We have $90,000 in forward bookings, Dad. Do you know what it means to lose that? VRBO will ban us from the platform. We'll have to refund every guest. We could lose everything we've built. Everything you built on my property. We invested in that property. The deck, the furniture, the appliances, were into it for over $35,000, which you put in specifically to increase the nightly rate. A judge is going to want to see the books, Natalie. All 16 months of them. Silence. How much have you made? Dad. How much? I'm not doing this on the phone. Then I'll find out from David. He'll subpoena the VRBO records. She hung up. I found the folder 2 hours later, in the bottom drawer of the old sideboard I built in 1998. Natalie had organized it neatly, monthly summaries, expense tracking, a running total. In 16 months, they'd grossed $143,000. Their claimed expenses, the deck, the furnishings, the cleaning service, the upgraded Wi-Fi, the property insurance, totaled just over $40,000. They'd netted, by her own spreadsheet, roughly $82,000. $82,000 from my cottage, without a single word to me. I was still sitting there when I heard my sister's voicemail come through. Just got off the phone with Natalie. She says there's been a misunderstanding and you've changed the locks on the cottage. I'm sure there's more to it, but call me, okay? She sounded really upset. Natalie had gotten to her first. I could picture it. Her voice careful and wounded, the story trimmed and shaped. A misunderstanding. Dad overreacted. I sent my sister the photo of the VRBO listing. Natalie smiling in the host profile. 47 reviews. The booking calendar solid for the next 9 months. My sister called back 20 minutes later and didn't say much for a while. Then she said, "She told me you'd given them permission to use it however they wanted. I told them to handle the maintenance, keep an eye on the plumbing." Another pause. The rocking chair? In the shed. "Oh," she said, "just that." 3 weeks passed. I stayed away from the cottage. I went back to my routines in Barrie. Morning walk, coffee, whatever needed doing around the house. Natalie didn't call and I didn't call her. Brad sent one text saying they needed to discuss the renovation costs and I didn't reply. Then one Sunday afternoon, a car I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway. Natalie, alone. She looked thinner than I remembered. She stood at the door and didn't quite meet my eyes. "I was hoping we could talk," she said. I made tea. We sat at the kitchen table. "I've been seeing a counselor," she said. "Since this happened, she's been asking me some questions I haven't been able to answer very well." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "Like, when did I start treating your property as if it were mine to use?" And I realized the honest answer is, a long time ago. Not just the cottage. All of it. The money you gave us. Every time something went wrong, you fixed it. And somewhere it stopped feeling like generosity and started feeling like something I was just owed. I didn't say anything. "Brad had the idea first," she said. "He said the cottage was sitting empty and we could generate income while managing it. And you'd probably be happy once you saw how much we'd improved the property." I told myself that too. I convinced myself you'd be grateful. She looked up at me finally. "But I knew, Dad. I knew you'd say no. That's why I didn't ask. Because I wanted to do it, and I knew you wouldn't want it, and I chose what I wanted anyway." She reached into her bag and put a folder on the table. "We canceled everything. All 93 remaining bookings. It took 4 days and Brad's still fielding angry messages, but it's done. The listing is down. VRBO reviewed our account and we're off the platform permanently." She pushed the folder toward me. "The actual net profit, accounting for all genuine expenses, and I mean every receipt, not the inflated figure I had in my head, comes to $82,400. I want to repay every dollar. I know you could fight us for more, interest and damages and whatnot, but I'm asking you to let me make this right the honest way." I looked at the folder. "There's a payment schedule in there," she said. "It'll take 3 years. But I'll do it." I thought about what Hank had said, about always being the wall that disappeared, about what happens when you finally let someone carry the actual weight of a thing. "Okay," I said, 3 years. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding it since she walked in the door. "The listing said the cottage sleeps 10, I said. "Where were you planning to put 10 people? The loft fits 3. Something almost like a smile crossed her face. "Brad bought cots. They're in the storage shed." She paused. "Beside Mum's chair." I looked at her. "I couldn't throw it away," she said quickly. "I know I should have. I know I shouldn't have moved it at all. The catalog furniture photographed better, and Brad said visual consistency mattered for the listing, and I moved it. But I couldn't get rid of it." Her voice broke a little at the end. "It's all right," I said. It wasn't, entirely, but it was getting there. She stood to leave and hesitated at the door. "Do you remember the summer I was 9? The summer the dock collapsed and you rebuilt it and you let me hand you nails? I thought I was actually helping." "You were helping. Don't let anyone tell you differently." Mum sat in that chair and watched us work for 3 whole days. She kept bringing lemonade. She kept saying that board's crooked and you kept saying, "It's fine, Gail, it's fine." It was slightly crooked. I remember. She looked at the floor. "I forgot what it means to build something, what it feels like when it's yours because you made it, not because someone handed it to you." She looked up. "I want to be better than I've been." "Then be better," I said. "That's all it takes." After she left, I drove up to the cottage. It was late afternoon, the light going gold over the bay. I went to the shed and brought out Gail's rocking chair and put it back where it belonged, on the left side of the porch looking out at the water, the slight list to the left, the familiar give of the old slats. I sat in it for a while, not in my own chair, in hers. The lake was completely still. A loon called somewhere past the point and was answered from across the bay, that hollow echoing call that sounds like nothing else on earth. I thought about what Gail would make of all of this. She'd always been the one who held the line when I wanted to smooth things over. Yes, it hurts now, but what does she learn if it doesn't? I'd spent years trying to protect Natalie from the lessons Gail knew she needed. Maybe that's what it means to love someone who loved them differently than you did. You carry forward the part of their wisdom you failed to practice when they were here. About 2 months later, a photo came to my phone on a Sunday evening. Natalie and Brad at the cottage, sitting by the old fire ring I'd built from flat rocks hauled up from the shoreline years ago. Not the propane fire table they'd bought for guests. That one had been sold along with the outdoor catalog furniture. The old ring, with birch logs and actual fire in it, the way a fire is supposed to look. Natalie was holding a mug of something. Brad was looking out at the water. The sky behind them was that deep blue that only happens in late October over Georgian Bay. The message underneath said, "First real weekend in a long time. No guests, no calendar, just this. Thank you for not walking away." I set the phone down and looked out my kitchen window for a long time. Some things cost you more than money. The debt you settle in years of trust rebuilt slowly, in conversations that go better than they have any right to, in a daughter who sits by a fire she didn't monetize and thinks to take a photo and send it to her father at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. Gail would have said, "See, let them fall, they find their feet." She would have been right. She was usually right about the things that mattered. I saved the photo.